I've got news for you. Man, you were created from God's perfect idea. Do you know that you came forth from God's perfect idea? You may have messed up along the way, but you came from perfection. Now, you see, this business of love also, many times we were taught that this love business was loving everybody else. But let me tell you where this business of loving has to begin. This business of loving has to begin with loving yourself correctly. Now, don't tell me that you can love somebody else correctly if you don't love yourself correctly. The Master Jesus said again, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And I wouldn't want some people to love me as they love themselves, because I see some people that treat themselves so badly. I don't want everybody to love me as they love themselves. So then that question presupposes that you, first of all, love yourself positively and correctly. You ought to love yourself not from the ego point of view. When I say love and self-confidence, I'm not talking about ego tripping. Maybe that's how some of you got that. You thought I was talking about ego tripping. No, I'm talking about loving the God in you. Loving your divine self. Loving the Christ in you. And when you love yourself divinely and love yourself correctly, then you're fit to love somebody else. Let me hop, skip, and jump into marriage for just a moment here. For a marriage to be successful, it is required that two people, first of all, love themselves correctly. A very jealous wife does not love herself correctly. Same for you guys. Wherever there is jealousy, there is a basic lack of self-love and self-confidence. I knew of a man, lived in the country. When he would go to work or leave the house in the morning, he would break some bushes from the side of the road and wipe out the tracks of his car. And when he got back home in the evening, before he came up that driveway, he would look in the driveway. And if there were some other tracks in that road, his wife had some explaining to do. And I want to repeat again, because this will help a lot of people in marriage and in many different ways. You would be surprised how many sociological and psychological problems are based upon a lack of proper self-love. People treat themselves badly because they don't love themselves correctly. People neglect themselves because they don't love themselves correctly. But you ought to love yourself. You're to love the talents that God gave you so much that you get busy and develop them. I went to a concert of the Boys Choir of Harlem, and it was so nice to see those young fellows. Some were perhaps not even 10 years of age, into the early teens, to see them singing and performing and developing their talent. You see, that's another thing. You know, you can't really do much for yourself or anybody else unless you love yourself correctly. And when you love yourself, you see your talent. And you find ways of developing yourself and developing talent and serving mankind. And I have to keep talking about this ego trip because you got to be careful about that. You got to keep it in balance. To love yourself does not mean to think I'm better than everybody else. Because I'll tell you something else. A person who thinks that he's better than somebody else, that is really nothing but a cover-up for an inferiority complex. Are we disciplining love? Write this question down. Do I love myself enough correctly? And underline correctly so that you don't go ego tripping on the question. God gave you something. You ought to love it. God gave you great possibilities. You should love them and develop them. God gave every one of you some kind of talent. You ought to love your talent and develop it. Some of you got a hobby. Some of you, you're sitting on a multi-million-dollar hobby. You'd better love the possibilities that God gave you. Do something with them. Maybe it's just frying chicken, but look what Colonel Saunders did with it. Anybody who can fry chicken has a multi-million-dollar talent. How many chicken fryers in here? Let me see your hand. Why ain't you rich? Why ain't every one of you a multi-millionaire? And let me get slightly off the track, but really not off the track for a moment, to say something about being rich and getting rich. It is impossible for anybody to get rich or be rich or to get successful or be successful without in the process making a lot of other people rich and successful, whether they want to or not. I challenge you to show me one person that ever really became greatly wealthy materially who did not make a lot of other people wealthy at the same time, whether they wanted to or intended to or not. It happens as an inevitable part of the process. Henry Ford became a billionaire. Look how many people to this very day are millionaires and multimillionaires because of the idea that Henry Ford advanced. How many Ford dealers are multimillionaires? How many people have made millions from Ford's idea? How many people have gotten jobs and have jobs to this very day? Why, Henry Ford literally put the whole world on wheels. He's credited with starting the assembly line concept of manufacture. And you see a lot of people, all they will see is, look at that old rich SOB. You better thank God for the rich SOBs. May there be some more rich SOBs, because the poor don't hire nobody. They don't open factories. And yet, in a way, they do too, because poverty is a multi-billion-dollar business. But the only people who get any money to speak of out of poverty programs are the administrators. You got to say it to me. Starts from up there in Washington at the Department of Health and Welfare and Education. And they get big salaries there. And they have people on their staffs and under them, undersecretaries, that get big money. And it funnels on down and down and down until it gets to the vendors, the business people. And boy, those vendors rake it in. Get those big, juicy government contracts. By the time it gets to the poor, it's a few dollars. It's cold food, stale bread, and rancid milk sometimes. But to get back on the other end of the coin, thank God for the rich people with great ideas, because they enrich us all. And each one should come to love himself and love the possibilities and love the talents which God has given to him, so that he can use those talents to bless himself and to bless all mankind. I don't think you love yourself enough. Let me hear every one of you say, I love what God is in me. I love what I am in God. I love the talents that God gave me. And let me tell you what life is, ladies and gentlemen. Life is a great, eternal self-discovery. Life is an unending self-discovery. And I'm going to have you to repeat that after me. Life is an unending self-discovery. And I've got news for you. You see, it doesn't all end when you leave this body. As a matter of fact, throughout all eternity, you're going to be discovering more and more of you. And you must love these infinite possibilities and realities of God in and through and as you. John loves God into expression as man, and loves man as the expression of God. I was in meditation when this statement came to me, and I want to take a part of it because it turns me on. John loves God into expression as man. Repeat that. And this is the work of the function of your being known as the disciple John. You are to love God into expression in you, through you, and as you. Wow! So repeat after me. I am loving God into expression in me, through me, and as me. Now that is something to think about. This is one way that we may state your eternal mission. Your eternal mission, your purpose throughout eternity is to love God into expression. For that beautiful, concise definition of God in 3 words is, God is love. Say that with me. God is love.